Background is having worked at companies like Amazon, Google. I then ran product management at Zazzle. I've done engineering and product management over time, having worked closely with everything you all identified as and more. Today, I work as a personal accelerator for individuals and teams. So I work with folks in the technology space to help them catapult themselves to their next levels, whatever that means for them. And as you can see, I studied cognitive science and computer science, which, has really brought me to want to marry people and machines, because we're all these individuals who need to work together very effectively, but we're working in this world of AI. There's a phrase that I'm using a lot with clients nowadays. It's like, machines are learning, are you, right? So with all of that in mind, as for tonight, what you are going to take away, you will all go away with an understanding of what product market fit is and why you should even care about it. Presumably something about that appealed to you all, which is what brought you here tonight. But let's get into that. Understand a process of experimentation that you can use to understand whether you're getting closer or further from product market fit. You want to understand how to measure product market fit. I mean, how many of you have this phrase bantied about at work or in some context? Product market fit, MVP, blah, blah, blah. Do you think that the people who are saying those words all mean the same exact thing as each other, or even know what they're talking about half the time? Feel like lots of no's. And this is true. So we want to get to some kind of common language or common understanding here tonight that you can then take back to either your current employers or your future employers if you're looking to get employed in another position. Because I will tell you, if you go into an interview and you're like, well, this is all the expertise I have on product market fit, and let me tell you about how you need to ensure that you get this for your company, your business, your product, and your long-term growth, you're going to be in a different category than someone who's just saying like, yeah, we should sell stuff, right? So again, something that's good to understand. And then finally, we want to understand how to effectively talk to customers so that you actually hear what you need to hear. As I'm sure our user research expert knows, sometimes customers lie. They don't mean to, but they do. So let's understand how we can get around that. So what is product market fit or PMF, and why do you care? How many of you have been in this position before? You're at the start of a project, you're at a whiteboard, you've got all the colored Post-its, the colored markers. You're like, we're going to take over the world. We're going to start a new e-commerce company that's going to destroy Amazon. We're going to, change healthcare. We're going to do fintech. Also, everything is now called fintech. But let's leave that aside, right? So how many of you have been in this position where you're like, everything is so exciting and great and awesome, and you intend for amazing things to happen? And now, is that always what immediately follows? Not totally, right? Then you're like, that whiteboard has been colored in the exact same way for the last 2 weeks. Like, we just keep debating internally, well, do we want to do it? Don't we want to do it? Is it the right strategy? Have you had those sorts of discussions? And how do we feel about that? Awesome? Super fun? Let's have the same discussion next week, same time, same place? It's very interesting. So being in New York, as we are tonight, we're not the best market for Uber, and yet we're using it tremendously. Meaning, other places, I remember when I lived in Seattle for Amazon, it was like, who do you call? Maybe I need to get a Yellow Pages. Like, this is such an antiquated system. I need to call someone. I need to reserve a car in advance. P.S. I'm never on time, and so I hope I make the plane, but I'm definitely not making the right time for this car. There's all these components versus Uber comes in and they say, look, there's all this inefficiency. Cars are all over the place. They could be really close to you right now, but there's no mechanism to connect the two of you. There's nothing to say, look, we are 3 minutes apart from each other. You should pick me up. And then on top of it, all the payments, right? Payments, now we have a bajillion ways to pay for everything, but traditionally cabs were doing either cash or credit card. And why are you calling this cab in the first place? You're trying to get somewhere. Like, often it's the airport where timing is essential. So if that's the case, if you can just get out of there, your payment is done, everything is great, we're solving real problems. We can enumerate, I had to wait 20 minutes, I had to call ahead of time, I had to plan things, maybe you were around, maybe you weren't. And the thing I'll say in New York, if it's bad weather, everybody's like, oh, can't get a cab now. At least there's a chance with Uber or Lyft. So there are all these different use cases that were real problems for consumers that Uber solved. But on the other hand, here, there wasn't a real problem. There wasn't a real market at the time. It's great that we now can utilize some of that technology to create new markets. But again, so product market fit is fundamentally going to be the question of, do you go somewhere or do you not go somewhere? If there is not a market, and all of you, if you're taking notes, write this down. If there is not a market for your product, you need to stop. You need to pivot. You need to adapt now. You can create, and I want to really illustrate here, this is a very high quality product. The Segway is a high quality product that no one wanted. It doesn't matter if it's super high quality, it's super cool, it was innovative tech. And yet if no one wants it, then, I will say, to their credit, they did shift into mall cops. They did shift into take tours of Philadelphia on Segways with your family. Real cops too, right? So, but they shifted into this market that they weren't initially planning on. That was the shift they made because that was a market that existed. But was that the huge, huge market that they were aiming for? Not quite. So again, we want to understand who are we aiming for? What are the real problems that they have? And we want to make sure we're solving at least one of them. So with all of that, measuring product market fit, I will tell you experientially, how many of you have been in a company where this is how you felt? You're like, this shit is not going well. And with that, it's funny, I was looking at the article, Mark Andreessen really popularized the terminology product market fit. And he was talking about in this state, when you're experiencing product market fit, he says, you know that that's happening. And then he goes on to say, well, you don't really have that many customers. People aren't necessarily talking about it. You're not getting high growth. For the customers that you've identified that you think are potential, the deals are taking really long to close and they're maybe not closing at all. Does this sound familiar to any of you who maybe have worked in a startup at some point?
Yeah, because they're dissatisfied because they're like, where are we going?
Yeah, so you're like that, that sounds good. On top of it, they're pissed. So yeah, this is what happens when you have not hit product market fit. And then conversely, when you do have product market fit, you find that you need to be creating things faster than you can even keep up. You've got people calling you out, they're saying, cool, you did this, can you do that? Can you add this? Can I have 500 more of that? You have a spiral of growth instead of a spiral of tumbleweed, where you're actually being requested. Like you're having your customers refer you to people. They're requesting maybe even more things from you because you've hit upon something that actually matches. And I will say, for as long as you're experiencing this, you need to shift. You need to keep going. If you are not yet here, then you haven't quite made it to the place that you ultimately want to be. And the thing that I really want to emphasize with product market fit in particular, and this will come up when we talk about how you talk to customers as well, I want you to really look at where people are spending money. Sometimes we lose track of the fact that people talk a lot. That's cool. Where's your money? So when we're talking about product market fit, I'm not saying to you, find out how many people think you're a nice person or at least don't want to hurt your feelings and have said nice things to you. Because that's often what we mistake when we say, would you buy a product that says blah, 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 blah? And they say, yeah, totally. You're like, cool. Give me money now and I will give it to you. When you've got this level of transaction happening, then you can truly determine whether there's product market fit. Before then, you've got a dream and a hope and you don't have a reality yet. So with all that in mind, since we started talking about talking to your customers, how they say a lot of things, let's figure out how are we going to talk to them effectively. Because again, how many of you have had somebody ask you like, do you, if I say to you, do you want this? Do you want this? Yeah, I worked really hard on it. Like, of course, right? You don't even know what the hell I'm selling you. You don't know what it does. You don't know if it helps you. But of course you're going to say yes. So we want to get beyond that interaction. And in particular, I want to highlight, if you remember nothing else, this is probably the most important thing when it comes to product management and building out products. Make sure that you understand your customer's pain. If you can solve something that removes customer pain, you have a chance. You can go somewhere. If you're not solving any kind of pain, I mean, it's possible that you've got a nice to have product, but let's explore for a second. Nice to have products in a down economy, what happens? Nobody buys. Things that solve my deep, deep pain in a down economy, what do? Still buy. So this is the kind of thing that I really want you to keep in mind when you're thinking about your business, your product, where you want to focus your time. And I also want to emphasize, people completely suck at designing systems. You might sometimes too, but most of you are supposed to design them. But by default, people suck at designing systems, but they are excellent at describing pain. Excellent. How many of you have a friend where, like, at the beginning of the conversation, you knew nothing of what was going on, and by the end, you're like, shit, I know all of your pain. I hear you. I hear you. You had that experience? So we really want to be able to connect with this. You know, it was funny. I want to share an example with you. When I was at Google, I was working on what I think the latest branding is Google Ad Manager. At the time, it was called DoubleClick. And it's basically the picture ads on the web. So videos and images that are displayed for ad purposes. And in particular, YouTube was using it internally. And so I was sitting down with the YouTube admin because to add a new user onto the system, the UI had 500 checkboxes that one had to check or uncheck so that a new user could use the system at all. So obviously that was fabulously designed and everybody thought it was great, right? Sounds good, doesn't it? But now with that in mind, now not only are there 500 checkboxes that are totally ridiculous, but they also have relationships to each other that you can't tell. So if he wants to enable a salesperson to see a sales by region report, he checks a button that has some of those words in it, talks to the guy, gets him on the phone and says, "Can you see it now?" And then the guy says no, and then he's like, "Let me search for another thing that looks like that." Checks it. "Can you see it now?" So that was clearly super well designed. Now, I knew enough about product at this point to know that the following question was probably not going to go well, but I decided to ask it anyway to see what would happen. So I said to him, "Okay, how would you want this system to work? How would you want it to be designed?" And he sits there and he looks at all the lines of description of the 500 checkboxes. And he says, "You see this line? It should say," and then gives me some updated verbiage that line should have. I'm like, "So you want to copy edit 500 strings in order to make the 500 checkboxes a little bit easier?" That's clearly not what he actually wanted. But it's the only thing he could think of because in his context, he doesn't know how the system works. He doesn't know how to design the system. So if you say to someone, "What do you think of this product? How do you like it? Would you use it?" You can ask these things, but the answers they will give you are mostly bullshit. So if you instead sit down with them and say, "Tell me about the things that bother you the most. Tell me about the things that are most inefficient in your day. Tell me about problems that you had if it's in e-commerce with returning, with purchasing, with the products, whatever it is that's related to what you want to build. Talk to me about how you shop, whatever it is, so you can understand where is the pain." Because if you can identify the pain, then you can get to creating a solution for that pain, and then you might find some product market fit. The other thing, we want to get to deep empathy. So one of the things that I always talk about when you're talking to your users, how many of you have talked to a customer or a user before and you're just so intent, you're like, "I just need to know, will you press this button?" Have you had this kind of conversations before? "I just want to ask you about this very specific thing that I designed, and I want to ideally hear the things I want to hear because I already decided this was a good idea." Or maybe you've seen someone do this. Now, I will tell you, what you really want to get to is beyond even just understanding the one part of pain that they have. You want to get empathy with your customers. You want to understand what their life is like. You know, it was funny, I remember when I was back at Zazzle, one of the analytics people there, she was a mom, and she talked about how, like, at the time, I felt like the phones weren't, I mean, they're still questionable sometimes when you're ordering stuff and trying to, like, see what exactly it is and whatever. And she was telling me, yeah, at the end of the night, like, if I remember something that the kids need or something that we need in the house, it's one of the last things I'll do is I'll go on my phone, see if I can find it, and just order it. And I'm like totally exhausted, but it's the only moment I have to even think about this stuff and then try to make sure that we're good. It's important to understand all of that context. Doing mobile shopping is very different when you're in bed, you want to sleep, and you're like, damn it, we need diapers, or whatever the case is. There are many ways to solve that problem, but you really want to understand your customer's life so that you understand how you fit into it, and so that you can understand how am I solving things right now as well as in the future. Now, a tool that you can use, which some of you may have seen, how many of you have seen or used an empathy map before? Okay, so maybe half-half. So one of the things you can use as a tool is empathy mapping. And so you can literally go through and say for each of your customers, ask these questions. What did they hear? What do they see? What do they think and feel? What do they say and do? And then at this bottom, what's the pain that they want to avoid? And what are the things that they want to gain? Now, I will tell you, and from a psychological and neuroscience perspective, part of the reason why I started with you saying pain is the most important is because we literally feel pain about 5 to 10 times what we feel as a positive. So if you notice when you accomplish some big thing and you're like, yeah, it's no big deal. It's cool. But if something goes wrong, you're like, can you believe this happened? The injustice of it all. Have you all noticed this? Things really stick with you. So these two are very core. And again, we want to understand the gain side too. But I will tell you, like one versus the other, pain is heavier weight. Understanding all of this will give you a better perspective on your customers so that you know how to meet their needs and how to build your product now as well as evolve it over time. So some experimentation methods. It's funny, I don't have a slide in here for it, but Sturgeon's law tells us that 90% of ideas are crap. Total crap. And yet, when we were in that initial whiteboarding session, didn't we think they were all beautiful and wonderful and amazing and we were going to change the world? And so to your point about iterating through, we need to iterate through all the crap that we have thought up, that we convinced ourselves and our teams were fabulous, life-changing, possibly segue-like ideas that we then want to shift to the best ideas possible, to at least something that is viable. Because how many of our ideas sound great but are not viable? You notice a lot of that shit, right? Most. So this is partly why we want to iterate on this loop again and again, especially toward the beginning. I mean, it's really ongoing though. I do want to say, Amazon, when you go to that website, you are in hundreds, if not thousands of experiments at any given time. So when you load up that homepage, there are all different contingencies on what that thing is going to do for you based on what treatments you're in. So this is even when you're developing business on the ongoing, not just when you're at that startup or initial phase. Now, MVP, what does it stand for? I know, we're all going to just like minimum viable product. Let's say it together. Minimum viable product. We have all droned in minimum viable products. Great, what does it mean?
It is something that's acceptable for a customer to interface with.
Okay.
Has some minimum function.
Minimum shit to give people. Okay, cool. Got it. You're like, I'm going to read what she said. I should have hidden it. Well, and it's funny. I mean, part of the thing is I'll tell you, whether you are a manager or you have one or you're going to have one for, you know, your future work, one of the biggest issues here around minimum viable product is that everyone is afraid that you're going to put out a piece of crap that no one likes and that we won't be able to recover from that. That your customers will say, well, clearly that you don't know anything, and so we've got to just ditch you because it all looks really bad. Now, really, you want something, yes, acceptable, but really it's all about validating learnings as quickly as possible. It could be launched to production, but it doesn't have to be. It could be simply something that you show using different methodologies that we'll get into. But and how many of you have seen this before? Okay, a handful. So this is, the more time you spend in this space, the more you will see images. In particular, this one has gotten a lot of notice. And you can see here on the top, you see a wheel, a base. At what point on that top line can I go somewhere? The end, right? This is more like a factory creating cars. It's cool if you're in Detroit, if we still make cars there, not sure. Anyway, but I mean, I can't do anything with the wheel, I can't do anything with the base, just the body, I have to wait till the end. That's fine if I know what I'm building and I know that people want to buy it and maybe they've even pre-ordered this stuff, great. But when we're trying to validate a new product in a new market, we need to take a different approach. So we're going to need to go through this, like let's say the skateboard. We started a skateboard. We're, again, revolutionizing transportation, playing along that theme. What's the difference between the skateboard and the scooter? Handlebars. But functionally, for the user, what are they getting? Stability. What else? Balance, control. How far can they go? Same? Is it? Okay. I don't know, I think a little further. I don't know. I mean, I will tell you, I'm out at stage 1. Can't do it. But stage 2, I'm like, okay, cool. I could do that. I could balance on this. And then what about scooter to bike? Speed, faster. Control can go longer. Cool. Say it again. You're sitting. That's a little better. Okay, cool. Now, what about bike to motorcycle? Faster, much more speed. Much cooler. Coolness factor. And look, that is a real thing. I mean, it's definitely a real thing. Do you all remember? Now we've got everything wireless and whatever. But Apple, when they had their silhouette marketing and the earphones. And it's like, yeah, I mean, what is that? It's just a bright color, a silhouette, and earphones. It's like, we're cool. That also may have been where we all stopped talking to each other. But okay, but we're cool. And then what about motorcycle to car? What are some of those differences? And I hope when you're saying comfort, you mean like also I am not in the elements, right? We can't ignore some of these things. So are the markets getting smaller or bigger as we evolve here? Bigger, yeah. And it's solving similar problems. Now here we can look and we can say, okay, maybe it's not the exact same product or market, but we're evolving our company into something else. We talked about, scooters, electric scooters are kind of coming back now. That's partly because of all, with Uber, with all of these different companies, we've got a different way that we're maneuvering point-to-point transportation. So maybe, we need to use some of these older technologies or different technologies to make an even bigger product set. Now, question for you. At what point can somebody use these products?
Stage 1.
Every stage. Yeah, every single stage. And that's what minimum viable product really means, is that you can actually use it. That it's something that solves a real problem that I have. So ways we can get to know our customers, experiment and understand. One is customer interviews. So we started talking about that tangentially when I was saying, I'm going up to users and I'm like, please love me. And they say, okay, sure. Again, we need to be careful about how we ask our questions, how we talk to them. But this is a great method for generally understanding your customers and getting into what works for them, what doesn't work for them. If you have a launched product, understanding how it works for them right now. If you're pre that launch phase, you can say, how do you solve the problems that you're aiming to solve and other life issues that might come up. Now, partly what I wanted to highlight here is You can do this in a formal or an informal setting. One of the things that I do when it comes to market research, personally, I do this and I recommend that you do it all the time. We are so often lose sight of the fact that we are around people literally 24/7 or, very close to that, right? Except for when we're in our house where we're with Netflix. But anyway, but we are with people all the time. So when you're getting your coffee, when you're on the subway, when you're walking around, you can strike up conversations. I mean, for a lot of you, if you're at the dog park, talk to the other dog owners. You have all these opportunities to learn about what's happening in the world. So it could be at the office or it could be at the coffee shop, either way. So look, and this is not the solution for everything, but I do want to highlight here, we're looking at Twitter. Literally, this is one of their initial paper prototypes. It looks exactly the same, right? No. Because this was one of their very early tests with people. There's some similarities to the way it looks today, but I would actually kind of push on you a little bit. I can, in fact, change this. It might not be the most beautiful, but I can take a Post-it, I can put it on top, and now I've got something new that I'm showing. Markers, pen, paper, these are the cheapest, easiest, fastest ways to get feedback from someone. And also, what kind of feedback do you expect people will give? Like, if you show them something on paper that they don't like, are they going to be reluctant to tell you that they don't like it?
No.
Why is that? Because
To them, you haven't put a lot of time
yeah,
into it.
you haven't put a lot of time into it. Now, reality might be that this shit was hard to come up with, and there were a lot of whiteboarding sessions beforehand, but it feels like it's not your term paper that's 80 pages long and you're like, this only determines the future course of my whole life and path, please love me. Right, and so you're gonna actually get much more honest feedback when you're using paper prototypes. So when you're at that stage where you really want this, you're like, I don't know if this is even a good idea. This is a fabulous method for testing it out. And like we talked about, you can't directly send paper electronically, but you can use Envision, you can use Pop, you can take pictures of all this stuff. You can create flows in apps and share them that way, starting with paper. I mean, don't freak out about, you're not supposed to be an artist or anything. Maybe use the best one with the best handwriting of all of you or something. Print in caps. This is not rocket science, but it's a way for you to get at real data from your users. Now, Buffer, I'm curious, have any of you used Buffer?
Can I ask a question about the previous slide? What's your thoughts on paper prototype versus like something like balsamic?
Yeah, I mean, they're both like fine. I mean, I really think for those of you who haven't used Balsamic, it's a prototyping tool that's electronic, but it'll make it look like paper. It'll kind of make it look jagged lines. You don't use colors. It's generally black and white. So it's to really emulate that experience, because I can't tell you how many executive conversations I've had with someone where they're like, but the button's green, and you're like, that's the easiest thing to change. We're not on the point. So I will say, when you're talking with execs or customers, it's really great for those initial sets of wireframes to be black and white, simplified, don't distract from the question that you're solving. And as far as paper versus balsamic, I mean, really either is fine, whatever one you're most facile in. Balsamic, you might be able to edit a little more easily and a little more cleanly. But again, they're both useful tools. It is very easy to put up some Google ads, some Facebook ads, link you to a page that says, log in, create an account, do things for free, whatever your value prop is, with a button that says, do you want to do the thing I want you to do? And I will tell you, if nobody clicks it, what do you think? Invest the company? No. And this is why we want to do those tests early, because even if we can change this in various ways. So I want to show you, this has evolved over time. So you saw the original, then they changed to say a better way to share social media, and they updated the graphic. And then they used almost the same graphic, but they changed the verbiage again to say saving time managing social media for your business. This is all landing page optimization that's been done over time. It's great that their initial one got them enough clicks to have them keep going. They're continuously optimizing the verbiage, the the format, the pictures. Initially I think it was just Twitter. Now it's basically all the platforms, and they're highlighting that in this new verbiage and in this new graphic. These landing pages, again, is anyone interested in it? That's the initial test. Then can I get them to convert? Can I get them to be paid? All, qualified leads, all the things that you're talking about. Yes, but at the beginning, you could just have it do nothing and just say, did people click? Or fine, collect that email, talk to them later. But the main point is, does anyone want this at all? Because if they don't, I need to shift my whole strategy. I need to shift my whole product. So that's the main purpose here. Dropbox, does any of you know the story of how Dropbox initially launched or initially tested out their ideas? Because how complicated or how expensive is it to build something like Dropbox where we have instantaneous synchronization across all devices for all file types, where it's immediate and the thing goes and it's all in the cloud safely stored and nothing ever gets lost? Easy? Little hard. So rather than build out all of that system first, they said, well, let's make sure anyone gives a crap, right? Let's make sure anyone wants it. Now, the one thing that I want to add, and thank you for, telling us about how he created a video and that it was this demo. The other thing is he wanted a lot of feedback, and so he posted it on a social platform that gives a lot of feedback. Where do you think we could get a lot of feedback on a technical product that people would like to talk about all their opinions on? Stack Overflow, good guess. It wasn't that one in particular. GitHub? Reddit? Did I hear Reddit? Yeah, Reddit. Yes, where people are so wallflowery with their opinions. No, where people are like vehemently into or not, or they want to tell you everything that they think about this product. And so he got all of this feedback. And now to the previous point that you all made about the landing pages, what am I getting when I get this feedback? What is that telling me? What do I do with it? What do you think? Iterate. What else? Telling you that there's interest. What else can I do now that I've got this post, this community?
Put out a new feature, perhaps?
Put out a new feature based on the feedback, yes. But I also now have a community, right? If I need beta testers, all these people who just talked to me and wanted to tell me all these things, they're now my peeps. They're part of my community. They're part of my tribe. They're people who I can continuously launch to, that I can reach out to. They're invested because they started telling me things, and then they're going to be even more invested if they told me things and I did something with what they said. A novel idea. So with that, and I will tell you, you don't even have to do exactly what your customer requested. They need to feel heard, and they need to feel like you have their best interest in mind. That everything that you're doing on your products, that you're developing, that you're giving them, even if it's not exactly what they asked for, you're like, I think this is what you really need. And then we can work through that together. So again, video or clickable prototype is just another way to get an even higher level of feedback with a higher fidelity MVP. But these are all different methods, and you will use different methods in different contexts, bless you, depending on where exactly your product is at that point and how you relate to your market. Then finally, Wizard of Oz. Does anyone know what this is? Okay, how many of you have read or know about, or have read in particular, Lean Startup? Okay, so y'all don't remember everything from it though, and that's okay. I'm here to remind you. For those of you who haven't read it, I really recommend it. It is a book by Eric Ries where he talks about lean and all of the methodology and how you can really go through this MVP type process, understand how you quickly iterate and adapt into your market. And I'm just kidding with you all where I'm like, I don't remember like yesterday, let alone all the things from the book, but this one stood out for me. And there was this particular startup, Food on the Table, where they had a hypothesis where they thought that they could create a grocery business where people would pick whatever recipes and whatever things they wanted to have for dinner, and they would go out and do the grocery shopping for them and then come back. And they thought that they could charge some amount of fee for that. So again, I could build a lot of infrastructure for this business. How do you think, what would you say is a way that I could test it that's very easy? Perhaps low to no tech. Yes?
Just get their phone number, tell them to text
Okay, cool. I love it. I love everything. You're like, yes, we will text. It'll still be text, but without, I don't have to build something. Yes. Now, if you're really early on, because that would totally work. If you're really early on and you don't really know that much yet about your target customer, what else could you do where you might gather a little more info than a text can give you?
Maybe we could figure out their pains, like do they actually not have the time to like actually go grocery shopping for specific reasons?
Okay.
Find their necessities.
Well, and how would we do that?
Interview.
Yes. So, okay. Oh God, we opened the Pandora's box of focus groups. Okay. All right. No. So one of the things, to your point, you just talk with them, right? You can just talk with them, interview them. And in this case, what they did was they just went to this person's home and they were like, can you write me down the list? I will take the list with me. I will go buy the things on the list. I will come back. You will give me a check for $9.95. Because again, what do we care about? What people say or where they put their money? Okay. So this is what they did. Now, you could also do the texting thing. I would just say early on, when you're at the very earliest stages of product development, I really want to encourage you to have direct contact with your customers as much as possible, because there's so much information that gets lost when you're just texting. I mean, think about dating, y'all. Like, you're just like, I don't know what this meant. Was that funny? Was that sarcastic? Do they hate me? I don't know. All kinds of things get interpreted based on an emoji usage. Like, so be careful and really just meet with people directly so that you can understand them early on. And then later we can add on, more of the text exchange, surveys, things like this. Focus groups, I don't know. I could do a whole talk on that. But again, that's another methodology for meeting with a set of your customers. So let's recap, because we learned a lot of different things. We learned a lot of different tools. We learned a lot of things we should do, things we shouldn't do, pitfalls to avoid. So today, what I said was you would get an understanding about product market fit, and you would understand what it means to you. That you would know how you could experiment your way into product market fit, or possibly at the very least out of some shit ideas that you had before. Because what percentage of ideas are crap? 90. It's so depressing, but so true. So those 10%, the faster we can get there, the better off we're going to be. Now, you also will be able to detect product market fit and which pitfalls to avoid. So do we want to look at what people say, or do we want to look at what? Where they spend their money. And then what's the experience of detecting product market fit? Is it when, what is that experience like? Based on demand, based on what else? Sales. There's more than I can keep up with. People are referring me. People are talking to me. People are asking me to add more things to the product. They're constantly engaged. They're not crapping on my stuff and saying, oh my God, I hate you. But they're rather saying, hey, I want more. What else can you do for me? For those of you who might not have heard, the question is around, one of the things we talked about was life cycle. How long does it take for a deal to close? And the question is around, well, for a B2B enterprise, deals generally take longer to close than, say, a consumer. A consumer might be 2 clicks, and then either you're in or you're out. And so what do you think about that? So it's definitely the case that B2B is a very different beast. You can still use many of these methodologies, but you want to understand your benchmarks as well. So you need to truly understand your market. If B2B might be longer, yes, but it's not necessarily 7 years, right? We don't have that long to wait around. So you need to understand what is that benchmark for a deal like the one you are trying to strike, bless you, like what you're trying to strike. If it's normally like a 3-month deal and you're averaging a 5-month, okay, maybe, again, first, I'm going to tell you, for these early businesses that you may be working on or new products, is anyone signing, right? Let's not fool ourselves. If no one signed, but you're like, we've only been talking for 3 months, let's see what 4 brings. You want to see an actual life cycle start to finish. You need to understand your benchmarks. You need to understand when things aren't even getting closer, so that you can start to do that adaptive, what else do I need to do? What problems do they actually have that I'm not solving? Is there any hope in this thing, etc.? So it is different, but again, the one thing that I would say in particular, because B2B is a very large spectrum, you want to understand what are the norms and are you even close to them? All right, and then with all of that, we also talked about, again, truly connecting with your customers in a way that works for both of you. So really making sure that instead of you just saying, like, do you like this? And then they say yes, and you're like, cool, that's awesome, thanks. Don't go to your customers for cheerleading. Go to mom and dad for that stuff if that's your relationship. But for when you're talking to your customers, you want to really understand what exactly is happening with them, what's working, what's not working, whether it's with your product or even something else, even within the domain that you're solving. I remember when I was at Google, at one point I was working with a team doing product shopping, and Google, shocking what I'm about to say, Google has a lot of male engineers, news at 11. So a lot of the engineers who were working on shopping, they were basically all guys, and they had completely nailed the electronics vertical. They were like, we know how to sell electronics, we know how we buy them, it's awesome. Meanwhile, Google had just bought a fashion company, and we wanted to do apparel shopping and really amp up that vertical. And the answer, talking to them, they're like, my wife bought this sweater. I don't know, right? And we're like, okay, it's okay. So we brought in some folks who weren't, engineers, but rather on the sales side. We brought in some women, and we said, show me how you shop. Just like, I don't care if it's on Google, I don't care what it's on, just show me how you shop. And within like 5 minutes, we said, what's the shopping problem you have? She said she had to go to a wedding in a few weeks, she needed a dress. Within 5 minutes, there were 20 tabs open, heavily of shoes and sunglasses. And all the guys in the room were like, I don't even know what's happening. There's not a dress on here. I don't know what happened. And all the women are like, yep, this is why ad retargeting works. This is the internet. Welcome. So with all of this, you want to really understand your customer. And I will tell you, the further that you are from your customer, the harder that's going to be. You're going to need to listen in a different way. You're going to need to see them in their natural behavior so that you can truly understand what they need, what they're like, what they care about. So with all of that, what you're going to need, again, to recap, ensure that you are addressing a real problem that has a strong market. Now, when I say a strong market, it could be a big market with lots of people, maybe low amounts of money, could be a small market, but it's deep. That is something that, every deal is thousands or millions of dollars. But make sure that it's strong for your definition of strong for your business. Then you want to validate and measure your product market fit. And again, the whole point of this, the whole point of the build, measure, learn, is that you adapt as needed. So it's cool that you determined 90% of the things you tried were crap. Now let's get to that 1 on 10 that's going to move your business forward, move your products forward. You want to connect with your customers effectively, and remember that empathy map, that's one of many tools that you can use to make that connection really deep. And then finally, experiment your way into that MVP and beyond. Because a lot of y'all might think MVP is one and done. It's not. It's a constantly evolving journey because your product is constantly evolving. How many experiments did we say you're in at Amazon when you go there on the homepage? Hundreds, thousands. Yes. I mean, so again, this is an evolving journey when managing products. And if you can master this stuff, you can get your product, your business into a growing path. For many of you, like having these kinds of learnings and being able to do this stuff, it might help you land that job as a product manager. It'll help you land that next level position that you want to have. So whatever position you all are in, I want you to know you can continue like on whatever path. I know some of you are looking at getting a new position. Some of you might be managing teams. Whatever the case is, if you want some help on it, you can either continue exactly as you are, but if you want some help, I am happy to offer you a free breakthrough session where we can sit down and unlock whatever isn't working for you. Because there's something that brought you here to understand more about product market fit, whatever is missing, whether it's in a team and company context or you individually and you want to just move your career forward, I'd be happy to chat with you about that. If you would like to do that, you can sign up at this link at connect.jocelynmariemiller.com. I will say spaces are limited. As you might notice, I am one person, not 15. Totally, if anyone is working on the technology of replicating people though, let me know, because that would be awesome. I'd be really into it. Many problems, that solves many problems.